on this challenge. I'm just going to grab the finish line and move it back all the way to the right, just so I have some space to crash. So that's going to be it for this lecture. We learned inside of my invoke method. So that's it for this challenge. Put it inside. Next, line script, finish line. So go ahead and pause the video to take on this challenge, and I'll see you in just a bit. Alright, excellent job with that challenge. I'm going to start by opening up my finish line script, and then I'm going to create a new variable at the very top, which is going to be inside of a serialized field, and it's going to be a float called restart delay, which I'm going to keep at 1 second. Now I'll replace the 1 second that we use in our invoke with restart delay. Next, let's go over to my crash detector script, and I'm going to do basically the same thing. I'll create a new method which I'll call reload scene.
Extending the variable, exactly what I named it. Oh, okay. I was like, where's my syntax highlighting? It doesn't show up.
Then I'm going to go up and grab this line of code, which restarts my scene, and I'll put it inside of this method. And once the player has lost, I'm instead going to type invoke reload scene, and I'm going to use another variable for our restart delay. So I'll grab restart delay from my finish line, copy and paste it here, and I'm going to use this inside of my invoke method. So that's it for this challenge. Let's go back to Unity and see if this actually works. I'm just going to grab the finish line and move it back all the way to the right, just so I have some space to crash my player. Now let's run the game. So as soon as I flip over and hit my head, it's going to wait 1 second before restarting the level. Nice. So that's going to be it for this lecture. We learned how to use invoke to add some delay before restarting the scene. Nice work this lecture, and I'll see you in the next video. In this lecture, we'll learn how to create particle systems to add some visual flair to our game. Let's jump right into it. Particle systems are one of my favorite parts of game development. They allow you to create really cool visual effects without much effort. Let me first create a particle system and then tell you how it works and why it's useful. I'm going to right-click anywhere in my hierarchy, go to Effects, and then Particle System. It's going to create an object that's shooting a bunch of different squares upwards in our screen. If we zoom all the way out and look up, you'll see that these particles disappear after a set amount of time has passed. You'll also notice that our particles have an orange outline around them, and it's only showing us that we have this particle system selected. So it doesn't actually have an orange outline around them, and if you look at our game view, you'll notice that they only appear as white squares. Now before we move forward with this, let's first see what exactly is a particle system and what is it used for. So what exactly are particles when it comes to video game development? Well, particles allow you to create thousands of little sprites for visual effects. An example here would be some 3D magic effects. So you can see there are hundreds of little particles that all make up one big effect. And another example would be a game called Hollow Knight, where when you defeat a powerful enemy, it shoots out a bunch of different particles and the boss explodes. So all of these little orangey bits coming out of this boss and all of this orange smoke are particles. And a particle system is what creates and controls all of these different particles. So any
Oops,
sort of
my
smoke,
bad.
sparks,
I just saw your messages. It's funny that you highlighted it. I did. Okay, I forgot to put the TTS, so fix the TTS. Oh, that's right. No, there is. Okay, yeah, I need to put the TTS up because um last night my computer had an error and had to restarted itself because it's like, oh, I forgot what the message says. But encountered error and then it did a forced restart, so now I have to reopen all the stuff again. Oops. Sorry. Wait, what were you saying? Skins are walking. No TTO. It's dead. Dead. I'm sorry. Well, I fix it now. And I turn everyone back into Swedish instead of Danish because the Swedish TTS is better. Okay, cool. Hey.
Centralicances. Jubiso D är större än Centralicances.
What?
explosions, and things like that would be created. And a particle system is a bunch of different particles and the particles that all make up one big effect. Of little sprites.
You know, like one day I'd love
is
to like
Visod är lika
be a
med
master of
bluescreen
particle systems because I love them too. Yeah, no, literally. Well, it wasn't blue. It just says it basically like restarts and there's a message. It's actually a black screen with a loading bar. It just says like encountered error restarting. It's like encountered. What does it exactly say? Encountered. I don't know. It says something like severe, but it's not that bad. It just basically crashes and needs to restart. So, and by the way, my computer's been doing this ever since I got it. So it's always done this, and I know it does this. It does this about once every 4 days. Like that's why the time when you told me, yeah, actually, when you told me, like it's an ASUS. I think it's like a problem just with the ASUS because when I like Googled it, it seems like people had all kinds of issues with this one. But like when you told me about keeping your computer on forever and never restarting it back then, that's I said to you back then. I was like, yeah, that would be impossible for me. My computer force restarts every like 4 days, which means I always save because I never know when it's gonna do that. Decide it wants to restart. I'm just used to it by now. It's fine.
A particle system, and what is it used for? So, what exactly are particles when it comes to video game development? Well, particles allow you to create thousands of little sprites for visual
Asterisk just asterisk stay on lol.
Okay.
effects. An example here would be some 3D magic effects. So you can see there are hundreds of little particles that all make up one big effect. And another example would be a game called Hollow Knight. Here for 3D magic effects, particles when it comes to video game development. Well, particles allow you to create thousands of little sprites for visual effects. An example here would be some 3D magic effects. So you can see there are hundreds of little particles that all make up one big effect. And another example would be a game called Hollow Knight, where when you defeat a powerful enemy, it shoots out a bunch of different particles and the boss explodes. So all of these little orangey bits coming out of this boss and all of this orange smoke are particles. And a particle system is what creates and controls all of these different particles. So any sort of smoke, sparks, explosions, and things like that would be created through particle systems.
Why does the run veil?
Aside from looking nice and giving us a bunch of different options, a particle system is so much more efficient than creating hundreds of different objects. So even if you have thousands of different particles on screen, it's probably not going to slow down your game that much. Anyway, what does a particle system consist of? It's actually very simple. Inside we have something called the emitting particles on screen. It's probably not going to slow down your game that much. Anyway, what does a particle system consist of? It's actually very simple. Inside we have something called the emitter, and this is what shoots out all of the different particles. So in our particle system in Unity, we have a specific shape that shoots out a bunch of particles in one direction, and these particles spawn inside of the emitter and then shoot out. The emitter itself has its own shape, which could be a box or a circle, or even 3D shapes like a cylinder. In Unity, a particle system is a component that you can add to any sort of game object. So if we head back to Unity, you'll notice that our emitter is this cone shape, and it's shooting out all of these particles upwards. By the way, on the bottom right of the scene tree, you can actually control the playback of these particles, so we can stop them, play them, or restart them. If I go to another object like my player, I can actually add a particle system component, and that's going to make my player shoot out a bunch of different particles. However, it's usually best to have the particle system on its own object, so you can easily move it around and keep it separate from your other objects. Now, in our particle system, we have a bunch of different modules, and we can use these modules to control the behavior of our particles. So if I jump back into Unity and look in the particle system inspector, you can see that we have a bunch of different modules, and we can click on each one to open them. The check mark on the left of each one tells us if this module is currently being used or not. So if I click on play to launch my particles and then go inside the emission module, you'll see that we have something called the rate over time. And this controls how many particles are created every single second. If we change this to 100, for example, it's going to launch 100 particles every single second. If we disable the emission module, so I click on this check mark over here, it's going to stop emitting particles at all. Since we need emission, I'm going to turn it back on, and 100 seems like a little bit too much, so I'll set this back to 10 for now. Now, what exactly is our goal when it comes to this particle system? Well, I actually just want to create some sort of explosion in our finish line to show that the player has won as soon as they touch the finish line. So I'm going to grab my finish line and move it all the way over here, and I'm going to make my particle system a child of my finish line. This is so my particles move with my finish line. I'm also going to go to my particle system and set the position to 000. And I think I'm going to move it a little bit closer to the flag. Now, I don't want these particles to be constantly emitting in my game. I want it to be one explosion that happens once and then stops immediately. And we can do this by disabling looping in the inspector. This is going to stop my particles from constantly looping every time it reaches the end. Now, if we go and hit play, it's going to run for the amount of seconds that we have set in our duration. The duration is currently 5 seconds, so it's going to start shooting particles for exactly 5 seconds, and as soon as this time runs out, it's going to stop creating new particles. Since I want it to be like a quick explosion, I probably want to make the duration way shorter. I'm going to go over to my duration and set it to something like 0.2. Now, as soon as I play this, it's only going to launch a tiny bit of particles, so we probably want to increase our emissions. If we go down to our emissions module, it says we're shooting 10 particles every 1 second, which by my very complicated math means that we're shooting 2 particles total. Let's increase that to 200, which means that we're shooting 40 particles in the entire explosion. Let's see how this looks, and excellent, I think it's shooting a good amount of particles.
Yeah, it was, I think, in Unity. Wait, I don't know if the TTS read that, but I don't remember TTS reading that. Sorry. Wait, actually, I'm not sure, but I think so. I think that's one of those like classic Unity games. Fun fact, Jacob, did you know that Unity was like founded in Denmark originally? Like it was Danish?
Coolera Caputses and then Silksong was built in Godot.
Ah, let's see. There's so many people here going to Godot. That's really cool.
Particles. However,
Coolera Caput says, not sure about that.
Yeah, that surprised me. I'm not sure if it was sold at some point, because
Coolera Caput
I
says,
kind of don't
he
think it
haven't
is
heard the
anymore.
Danish claim to fame of Unity.
I don't think like Unity's like famous enough.
Centralican says, if
for it.
we go way back, they actually started on the moon.
Uh-huh.
Coolera Caput says, Skype used to be Danish.
Skype used to be Danish? What? Okay, that's crazy. Let's see. Click Google. Yeah, it is one of those things, like, you would think if it was, like, people would talk about it more. That's why it surprised me. Unity Technologies was founded as Over the Edge IS in Copenhagen on the 2nd of August 2004 by David Helgason. So yeah, so technically, though I'm just like not sure if it is anymore. I kind of get the feeling like it's not anymore. Founded in Denmark, but it might not. It might have been sold. It was sold at some point. This is a question for AI because I don't want to read this full article. Is Unity Unity is no longer a Danish company, so that's why I probably don't hear about it. They moved headquarters to California and then registered there using the software, and then became an American trading corporation. Oh, someone actually asked a question. It's migrate in the country. They probably opened a U.S. office under a U.S. business name and then dissolved the company in Denmark. Yeah. But they were Danish, so I can say it in the past tense.
it's only shooting in one direction, and
Oh yeah, I keep forgetting what I'm actually going to do, which is particle system. Oh. Wow. I'm like trying to remember what I did earlier when I toggled the boxes, the yellow, orange highlighting boxes around the particles, but I don't remember. I did something like here where I clicked on something in the menu up here, but there's like so many. I don't remember what I did. Might have been tool setting. No, I don't know what that is. Ah, it was selection outline. Oh yeah, I see what that does. I guess that's why that does that. Yeah, I think I actually prefer that to be on anyway. Duration 2, mission. $200. It's crazy. There's so many particles. It's just white. No looping. Put a child finish line. Reset the transform. You know, it's kind of interesting for me to think about how if I ever make a game in Unity, like if I were to open that game up in the NSpy, like there'd be a lot of code that I don't know what it does because a lot of it's like Unity's code and stuff Unity does too behind the scenes, and I just feel like I don't know what that is. What just happened to why is my particle no longer a cone? I don't know what happened. I don't know why it turned into this. Huh. Yeah, it's fine now, but when I drag it into the object, it changes its shape. It's weird. Oh, when I reset the transform, it changes its shape to a circle. That's what it is. What the hell? Why?
Taras Masepasses, vinkande hand.
That makes no sense. Oh, is it the rotation? That's... Oh my god, it's the rotation. It's like a cone object thing. Wait, so if I were to, let's say, turn the rate down to 10, and play 2, it's better. But yeah, if I were to mess with it. Okay, so it's 0. Wow. That's cool. Okay. Try to finish line. So I can't reset the transform because I need the rotation to be the same, but I can 0, 0, 0. Go. Turn off looping. 200.
I wanted to shoot as in the entire reward. It's only going to launch a 1.3 my particle system, a child of my finish line. This is so my particles move with my finish line. I'm also going to go to my particle system and set the position. I put a tiny bit of my very complicated math, so excellent. I think it's shooting a good amount of particles. However, it's only shooting in one direction, and I want it to shoot as a circle explosion around the finish line. In order to do this, let's scroll down to our shape module, and this allows us to control the shape of our emitter. It's currently a cone, and we can change the angle to have it be wider or narrower, but what I actually want to do is change the shape entirely. And we have a bunch of different shapes to choose from, but the one I think would create the best effect would be the sphere shape. So let me select that and play, and you'll see that my particles are now launching in every single direction. That looks great, but I think my particles still last a little bit too long. I want it to be a short explosion, so we can probably reduce something in the inspector called the start lifetime. Rather than making each particle last 5 seconds, I can change it to something like 0.3. Now, as soon as I play, it's going to launch these particles in 0.2 seconds, which is our duration, and each particle will last exactly 0.3 seconds. Now, I want to create a little bit of variation. The explosion looks too predictable and maybe a little unimpressive. If we go over to the right of our start lifetime, there's actually a drop-down menu that we can click on. From here, we can choose a constant, which means a fixed number, or a random between two constants, which means a random between two different numbers. I'm going to go with that, and you can see we can choose two different numbers now. I'm going to set it to something like 0.3 to 2 seconds. Now, as soon as I play, every single particle will have a different life.
What? It's because of the rotation, right?
Lifetime now is excessive, and each particle still lasts a little while. Well, if we go with some seconds, so you can see it.
And why does it look like that? What? Why is it a line?
Some of them disappear early, and some of them last a long time. In every single direction.
Oh, because I said circle. I don't know what that does actually, but I was supposed to do sphere. Oh, and the circle's probably pointed. It's like pointed up, so it's like I only see the straight line on the edge of it. There we go.
That looks great, but I think my particles still last a little bit too long. I want it to be a short explosion, so we can probably reduce something in the inspector called the start lifetime. Rather than making each 0.3 seconds to 2 seconds. So you can see some of them disappear early and some of them last a long time. I think 2 seconds might be a little bit too much, so I'll set this to 1 second for now. Now let's see how this looks, and yes, I think this looks pretty good. We can do the same for our start speed. So rather than having each particle move at the same speed, we can make it a random between two constants. So I can make it a random between 3 and 10, for example. And all of this creates a bunch of different variety. So every time I play my particles, it's going to look slightly different. While we're here, let's change our start color as well. Rather than have it be a boring white, we can also make it a random between two colors. So I'm going to make it a random between a light green and a light blue, for example. Now if I play this, it's going to add a nice random color to my particles. There are all sorts of modules and possibilities you can create, so feel free to play around with all of these different modules and create an effect that looks nice to you. One final complete constants. In between, while we're here, let's change our start color as well. Rather than have it be a boring white, we can also make it a random between two.
Oh, that's a little better.
Colors. So I'm going to make it a random between a light green and a light blue, for example. Now if I play this, it's going to add a nice random color to my particles. There are all sorts of modules and possibilities you can create, so feel free to play around with all of these different modules and create an effect that looks nice to you. One final thing I want to show you is that in the renderer, which should be the last thing in the list, you can choose the material of your particles. And this decides how your particles are actually going to look. If I click on select material, I can change it to something like this bright circle, and it changes our shape from big squares to tiny little circles. If you grab some particle materials from the Unity store, then you'd switch them out here. I personally like the squares, so I'm going to keep it how it was. And finally, here is your challenge. I created a particle system for my finish line, so I'd like you to create another particle system for when our player crashes. And again, feel free to play around with all of these different modules to create cooler effects. So go ahead and pause the video to take on this challenge, and I'll see you in just a bit. Alright, excellent job with that challenge. Now I'm actually going to cheat a little and I'm just going to copy paste this particle system, which I'm going to rename finish line particles, to my player. So I'll paste it over here, paste it into my player, and I'll call this crashing particle. I'm going to reset the position, and I'll move it up to match my player's head. I think I'm just going to change the start color of my particles in order to differentiate them. So I'll make this a range from yellow to orange, for example. Let's see how this looks, and it does a pretty good job at showing that the player has crashed. Now, one other thing that I wanted to mention is that every single particle is not a separate game object.
Desk now so we can play games without burning my soul and skeleton and flesh suit to cinders.
Hey, nice. That's awesome. Hey, yeah. Yeah. It's hot having a laptop on top of you. Like, I have to put something underneath it. I cannot just, like, have it on me. Like, it's too hot.
And one of the limitations of using a particle system is that we can't control each particle manually. So I can't grab a specific particle and see its position and rotation, for example. If you want to control how particles function, it has to be done through the particle system. Anyway, in the next lecture, we'll hook up all of these different particle systems to our code, and we'll make them run when we hit the finish line or crash the player. So that's it for this lecture. We learned what particle systems are and how to use them for our finish line and player crashing. Excellent work this lecture, and I'll see you in the next video.
I want to make my particles look like blood. If that'd be fun. For crashing. How this looks? Let's see. Go between.
Centrally can says, mark the particles be random lines of code from the game's
This
source
red?
code.
How does that look? Oh wait, why am I playing it? That would be so. That would literally be so funny. Oh my god. That is cool. Imagine that. That would be so adorable. Like, it's like so random, but imagine you were making a game, and the theme was like cyberspace. So all the particle effects are just random lines of the game's code flying out. Like, that's clever. But like the game's actual code, not even random code, but just the game's code. That'd be wild. What am I doing? Crashing particles and testing the particles. I think that's pretty good. It's like a mixture of. Yeah, I want a mixture of like what looks like blood and snow.
In this lecture, we're going to trigger our particle effects whenever we crash or reach the finish line. Let's jump right into it. In the previous lecture, we created two different particle effects. We created these crashing particles and these finish line particles. Now, we want these particles to trigger as soon as the player crashes or as soon as the player reaches the finish line. However, before we do that, you might have realized that as soon as we start the game, both of these particle effects instantly start playing. And we can fix that easily by going down in the inspector, go into our particle system, and there's an option here called Play on Awake. This makes the particle systems play as soon as the game starts, which is probably not what we want. So I'm going to turn this off in my finish line particles and then go to my crash particles and turn off Play on Awake. Now it should stop playing as soon as the game starts. Moving on, I'd like to trigger the finish line particles as soon as we reach the finish line. So I'll go down to my scripts and go into my finish line script. Now, in order to trigger these particle effects in my script, we first need to grab the particle system component. And previously in my player controller, we got the rigid body by using the getComponent function. We could use this method because the rigid body component was on the same game object. Since our particle systems are on separate game objects though, we can't really use the getComponent function in this scenario. Instead, we need to use a way that allows us to...
Wait a second.
So I'll go down to my scripts and go into my finish line script. Now, in order to trigger these particle effects in my script, we first need to grab the particle system component. And previously, in my player controller, we got the rigid body by using the getComponent function. We could use this method because the rigid body component was on the same game object.
Oh, yes, the particle system is a separate game object. Missed it. It's not on. Yes.
Since our particle systems are on separate game objects though, we can't really use the getComponent function in this scenario. Instead, we need to use a way that allows us to get the particle system from anywhere else in our scene. And we can do that easily by creating a new serialized field. Rather than have it a normal variable type like float and integer, I'm going to make this serialized field a new particle system, which I'm going to call finish particles. Now that we have the finish line particles in a variable,
Centrally
Oh, wait, I'm
says,
supposed to do
and
that in
then add
here.
a random line in there with en 10,000 chance that says, if you're reading the you're fat.
Wow. Yes, a one in what? 10,000 chance that one of my players will hate themselves. What am I doing?
Let's simply go down to where the player touches the finish line, and I'll simply write finish particles dot play, and then parentheses semicolon since this is a method.
Centralican says, if you get cancelled over,
This is going to
just give
play the
a
particle
fancy
effects
excuse.
as soon as
It's
the player
source
touches
code.
the finish
It
line.
isn't meant for the player
Now
to
let's
see.
head back to Unity, select your finish line,
Centralican
and go
says,
down in the
it was
inspector.
targeting
You'll notice that we have
Centralican
to set
the
these finish
player.
particles since we're using a serialized field. We can do this by grabbing the finish line particles object and putting it inside of this empty field. Now, even though I dragged the object itself, Unity is smart enough to realize that I meant the particle system component inside of this object. So the finish particles in our script is now set to the particle system component inside of this object. Now let's save the scene and start the game. My player is going to slide over, and as soon as we touch the finish line, it plays the finished particle effects and the game restarts. Perfect. Now, one thing I noticed real quick that I want to fix is that some particles go behind my level sprite shape. So I'm going to go over to my particle system all the way down, open up the renderer module, and then go down to order in layer. I'm going to set that from 0 to 3, for example, and now all of my particles should appear in front of my sprite shape. And that brings us to order in layer behind my level sprite shape. So I'm going to go over to my particle system all the way down.
Okay. Well, I'll definitely use this excuse that, oh yeah, it's
Open
definitely
up
not
the
you.
renderer module, and then go down to order in layer. I'm going to set that from 0 to 3, for example, and now all of my particles should appear in front of my sprite shape. And that brings us to your challenge. I set up the particle system for my finish line, and now I'd like you to trigger the crash particles as soon as the player crashes. So go ahead and pause the video to take on this challenge, and I'll see you in just a bit with my solution.
So if I'm lucky, everything will go right. There won't be any weird issues that happen with Unity, and it will just work. Because this seems like straightforward. This seems like something that should just
Centralican
work.
says, crash particles need to be blood.
Exactly. And they are.
Centralican says, this seems straightforward, but it's Unity.
I know, that's the thing, is like sometimes it's like, oh yeah, that's straightforward, but then something just weird happens. It's like, why? Why? Why Unity? Honestly, I should put the print stuff first, because this was just debug code anyway. Do it like that. I think this is cleaner.
Centralican says,
Yeah,
who you
honestly,
needed
you
to
know
add
how
at
I was
also a
saying,
parameter to the function to tell the function that you're
I
sure
was
you
saying
actually
how,
wanted to run it instead of thinking about running it.
you know how I was saying like the syntax highlighting in DN Spy was kind of faded? Well, so is this. This is just as faded, and this is also worse because it's multiple things. And that's a property too. I'm trying to find it. Oh yeah, yeah. This is white, and this is white, so they're sharing the same color. Yeah. Anyway,
Centralican says, we I got get you set up with that.
well, what do I call it? Crash dot play, and it should all work, and there should be no problems. I just have to drag the object reference from
Centralican
inside
says,
the
yeah,
editor.
for however problems Danspis has, this is TUX worse for each of them lul.
Yeah, now I need to Control R and refer to reload domain. Well, two things have to happen. It has to compile and then it has to reload domain. I'm not really sure why it has to do both. But I guess the reload domain is like reloading the editor, and the compiling part is just the compiling it so it can run. But the reload domain takes way longer than the compile part. There we go. Okay, now we should have our thingy. Oh no, it should be on finish line. Never mind. Finish particles. So I drag it in. Boop. And then I go to player. Controller. Oh, crash detector. And then I grab the crashing particles. Okay, and now it should just work and be perfect. Let's crash first. Nice. That works. Yay. Okay. Yay. Alright. That's all for today. I know it's kind of like short and cozy, but like some days I just want to like rest and I have like things to do. Other things I have to do. Nice. Oh. I like being your test subject. Corrupt. It's fun. I like when you come up with new ideas and you're like, here, try this and see if it and see what happens. It's fun. Yeah. Okay, cool. I save here. And then I have some chores and errands and stuff I have to do around the house, so yeah, that oh, what just happened? Yep. Close this. And today I'm going early to bed for no reason. Then I'm just going to. But yeah. Thanks guys. Thank you. Good night.
Centralican says, I didn't hear what you were saying.
I was just saying, I'm gonna head off. I've got some errands and things I have to do around the house. But also, I was also saying, I like being your test subject. It's really fun. I like when you come up with new ideas and new challenges and stuff for me to try. It's fun. And that's the kind of thing that it gets me excited to learn about coding. Whether I pass or fail. Like, it's really fun. Oh my god, I didn't even see that message you sent me on Discord about no TTS until I looked right now. I'm just like, oh, because my phone actually, I don't get Discord
Taras
pings for some
Mazepa says,
reason on
going
my
early
phone.
to
It's
bed could be
crazy.
a sign of being a child or losing young adult lot the night stamina flinnande ansikte med
No,
svettdroppe.
how dare you disrespect me like that? That's kidding. No, I have it. I can do it. I just don't want to tonight.
Centralican
Some
says,
days I should
you're
go
either
early to
3
bed.
or 300.
There's nothing wrong with taking care of your house. Just because you can pull off an all-nighter doesn't mean you should do it every single night. At least that's what one of my friends said. Well, I know you're 3. Corrupt,
Centralican
so.
says, they got like 2 till 3 hours of sleep.
Maybe. No, I slept in, which I'm sure you can understand why. So I'm decent on sleep. I'm like a little bit tired, but I
Centralican
don't feel too
says, I
tired.
got like 2 till 3 hours of sleep.
But I do have a lot of other things like I have to do, and I don't want
Taras
to be too
Mazepa
tired to do
says,
those
I love me
things.
sleep schedule.
That's awesome. It's so nice to have a good sleep schedule. Wait, Terrace, I have a question. Wait,
Centralican says, but I'm
uh,
used to short sleep periods thanks to night shift.
well, the person Corrupt who was in the voice
Taras
chat with
Mazepa
us
says,
yesterday,
with
who came
age
into the
you
voice
enjoy
chat.
sleep more than
That
reproduction
person,
flinnande
their name
ansikte
started
med
with a T.
svettdroppe.
Is that you, Terrace? Was that like your Discord account, or was that somebody else? I'm just wondering if that's you, because it was like Teresa or something, but it kind of
Taras
sounds like
Mazepa
Terrace.
says, it
Okay, it wasn't
wasn't
you.
me.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure like who that is on Twitch. I don't know if they have the same username as their Discord. I'm not-
Taras Mazepa says, me Discord has the
Oh,
same
okay,
name
same name
as
as
I
Twitch.
Twitch.
Gotcha. But thank you guys. It's fun, and I'm like, I feel literally like blessed by the gods that Unity worked
Centralican
today.
says,
Like that,
Tiasa.
nothing weird happened, and that just feels like incredible. Like I can't believe it. I just can't believe it. Like what? Am I being tricked? Oh, I do have to finish the rest of the video, but there's nothing more for me to do. I think I did all the. I hope there's not more code because I
Kasper
closed the
Kapper17
project.
says, good day.
I'll be sad if there's more code. Hi, Casper. How are you? Nice to see you. I'm right at the end. I was having like a very short stream today, but um, some days be like that.
Centralican says, oh, it worked. That's a problem. That means it's not telling me how it's breaking.
Oh no. Yeah, I secretly am like, should I trust it? Should I trust it?
Kasper Kapper17 says,
Unity
easy.
has
How
traumatized
about
me.
it? I am good.
Well, coding in general has traumatized me. That's good. I'm glad you're good.
All right, nice work with that challenge. I'm going to start by opening up my crash
Samtale
detector
kan ses.
script,
Observation
and then
dur
creating a
finminset.
new serialized field.
Kasper 17 says.
It's going to be of type particle system, which I'm going to call crash particles. Then, as soon as my player crashes, I'll go over to this if statement, and I'll grab crash particles dot play. And that should be it from the scripting side, so let's go back to Unity. Now let's start the game, and I'm going to tilt my player in order to crash on the floor, and oh, it looks like we've caused an exception. It says crash particles of crash detector has not been assigned. This error is trying to tell me that I've been too hasty and totally forgot to set the crash particles in my inspector. So very quickly I'm going to go over to my player, scroll all the way down and drag in my crash particles.
But this makes me
And
wonder. His
Totally forgot
I'll
to set
close my thing, but like I think I use the same values as him in my Unity editor, and my dinosaur moves like a
the
snail,
crash
and his goes way
particles
faster. And it's
in
kind of
my
interesting.
inspector.
Oh, maybe it's because I didn't use delta time. Yeah, probably that. Like I'm on a slow ass computer and I'm not using delta time, so his value makes his dinosaur go fast. My value makes mine goes slow. It's so sad. Yeah.
So
if you don't use delta time yet.
Yep, I didn't. Yeah, we didn't use delta time in this one, so that makes so much sense.
very quickly, I'm going to go over to my player, scroll all the way down, and drag in my crash particles. Now it should work, so let me grab my finish line and move it away from here. And I'll start the game. Now let me tilt over my player, and you can see that the crash particles instantly play as soon as I crash. I'm still getting the issue where some of my particles are behind the sprite shape though. So let's go over to crash particles, all the way down to renderer, and I'll set the order in layer to 3. Let's start the game again, and hopefully all of my particles should be visible, and there you go. All of them are in front of my sprite shape. So that is going to be it for this lecture. We learned how to trigger our particle systems through code. Nice work, and I'll see you in the next lecture.
Cool. Nice. Right. Alright. Bye guys. Thanks. I'll see you later.